Okay, we're back for more. So let's take a look at some of the phrase elements. So I've gone through the code that we were putting together in our last video and made it a little more normal looking so we don't have a bunch of random headings up at the top. Let's go ahead and put in some phrases. And so the phrase elements allow us to basically put some context or meaning into our text, so we can pull certain elements out in specific ways and things like that. So okay, so some of the most common phrase elements that you'll use include phrase elements that let you italicize or bold text. So italicizing is done with the EM element for emphasized. Let me scroll up where we see what I'm actually emphasizing. So I'm emphasizing this Latin word here, pelentesque. Now if we, so that's basically how you italicize text. If we were to move this closing tag out a ways, we could italicize this whole phrase here. And you'll notice that one aspect of phrase elements that's different than paragraph elements or block quote elements or heading elements is that they work in line. They don't create a new block of text. They essentially work in line within a block. So we can call out text within a paragraph, for example, with the phrase element. So another example of that is the strong tag, which has the effect of bolding text. Now, you used to really just see people using the B tag for bold, and the book even mentions bold is, or B tag for bold is still an okay thing. To be honest, I don't see people really supporting that a whole lot. I see people going towards just using the strong element for bold text. And so that's generally what I'll do. Because are you really going to bold something without meaning to give it some kind of a strong importance? Doesn't seem quite as likely. Okay, so for some other elements you can use, you can do a sub or a super element for subtext or supertext. So let's say you want to put in a footnote or something. You use the supertext element, and you'll see here I just turned that one into a supertext. And then let's see some of the other ones that are perhaps a little more commonly used. Well, you have actually a lot of the other ones aren't that commonly used, but are nice to know about. So for example, this mark element that your book mentions, that allows you to highlight text pretty easily. The nice thing about using something like the mark tag rather than using a style is that you could turn around and you could style that mark tag. And so you could use a mark tag and you could repeatedly just style that mark tag from your CSS and just reuse that mark tag and style those all at once. I'm not going to go through all of the phrase elements. They're on page 34 of your book, but they can be really handy. Let's talk now a little bit about lists. You'll use lists more than you might think as you do your web page, your website. So there are really several types of lists. The most common are ordered lists and unordered lists. So an ordered list, specified by the OL tag for ordered list, is essentially a list of numbered items. So that's why they're ordered. Or they could be lettered as well. But okay, so with a list, typically you first define the list with an opening and a closing tag, and then you define list items. And usually it's good practice to indent those list items so that you can see that they are part of a list. And you can see that really they're children of this parent element here. So item 1, item 2. It's not really particularly good practice to create a list that only has one item. People do it, but it's a bit tacky because you can't really cut a pie in one piece. But here you go. You can see how this list item, this ordered list item works. Item 1, 2, and 3. Now, if we want to make this just a bulleted list rather than an ordered list, we change it from an OL to a UL, UL standing for unordered list. So there really isn't necessarily an indication that these things are in any particular order. We're just using bullets. So OL is numbers or letters, some sort of an order. UL is bullets. Now the reason that you, for one, well, you may use these for one because it's often good to put concepts, especially in instructional situations, into lists. But for two, a lot of times list items or lists of some kind are used for navigation purposes and things, and we use style sheets to manipulate lists to help us to be able to create what really functions as a list but appears as something a little bit more fancy for the user.